Apologies for the delay and a warm welcome for everybody to this webinar. My name is Heidi Arake and I work at IPPF on the GUSO program. GUSO stands for Get Up, Speak Out for Youth Rights. It is a 5-year program ending in 2020, which is supported by the Dutch government. Today, we are glad to share an introduction to the updated Sexuality Education Review and Assessment Tool, SERAT, which was created by UNESCO, and the Inside and Out tool, which was tailored by IPPF based on SERAT. Before we delve into today's discussion, I will do some housekeeping announcements. Please keep your microphones muted so that we can hear the speakers clearly. This meeting has a live translation in English and Spanish, so make sure that you choose your preferred language in the tab, even if your preferred language is English, because we will have the last presentation in French and we will want you to hear it when that begins. So make sure that you are tuned to the correct channel by going to the interpretation tab at the bottom of your Zoom screen. This session, as you can see, is being recorded so that we can share it with those who could not join us today. As the speakers are presenting, please send your questions using the chat function. In the Q&A session, please raise your hand if you want to speak. And we have the slides available for you to download, so I'll be sharing the link to that later in the presentation. This is the third webinar in a series that is planned by GUSO this year. Our previous webinars were about the experience of using community health entrepreneurs to offer services in Uganda and WhatsApp to deliver CSE. If you missed them, there are recordings available that you can access by downloading the slides from today. As you can see on the screen, there are a few upcoming webinars to watch out for. The next one will be on findings from our research on peer education. In addition to the GUSO webinars, the IPPF COVID-19 Task Force is organizing a range of interesting sessions to watch out for. If you are part of IPPF, make sure that you are linked to the wider federation via Slack, where colleagues are sharing helpful resources and invitations. Ask your IPPF contact how to register. Today, our objective is to motivate you to assess your CSE program, to identify possible improvements, and I am glad to welcome in this meeting colleagues external to IPPF. So now let me introduce today's panel. To begin, Ishmael from Ghana will give us an introduction to the basics about Inside and Out. Then Xavier from UNESCO will share the highlights about the latest SERAT version and its implications. We will delve into a practical example of utilizing Inside and Out in Sri Lanka through Yanaranga. And finally, Herb will present the example of using Inside and Out in Togo. That last presentation is in French, so make sure that you are already tuned to your chosen channel. After those presentations, we will have about 20 minutes for the Q&A. So without further ado, I invite now Ishmael to take the floor.
Thank you very much, Heidi, and good afternoon to everyone that's on this call. I'm happy to have the opportunity. All right, so I'm going to be relying on Heidi to share the slides on my behalf because I'm having a bit of a challenge with the network. So yes, first slide, please, Heidi. Nice. Okay, so the Inside and Out tool Xavier is going to be sharing a lot more on the history about it, so I'm not going to be talking in detail on that side, but just to say that this is a tool that we have developed together with colleagues from UNESCO and from other areas to help bring a focus to our comprehensive sexuality education intervention. And it mainly was because we wanted to have a standardized tool that we use to assess the quality, the comprehensiveness, the effectiveness, and the practicality of sexuality education programs that we run as an organization, but also as member associations or civil society actors, etc. So what we do with the tool is that the tool helps to review and assess the comprehensiveness and the quality of sexuality education programs based on international standards and evidence of good practice. And it also helps to inform debates and advocacy by generating data on the state of sexuality education that is understandable, that is easy to analyze, and accessible to different audiences. And in doing so, we have been able to apply this tool so that we can understand the stage and level at which every MA that is implementing a sexuality education program is. Then based on what you have identified and what you are learning from your program, you are able to move to the next level. The other thing that the tool helps us to do is to access the relevance of the program in relation to national health demographics and also the social criteria in terms of gender and other related issues that are prevalent in the country. So this is, in general, is what the purpose for the Inside and Out tool is. And this is why we have this important tool and why we use it to assess our program. Next slide, please. Yes. So how do we apply the tool? Number one, we look at applying the tool in assessing the sexuality education program for community spaces. And then secondly, we use it to look at programs that are in school settings. And then there is a relation between the Inside and Out tool and the UNESCO SERAT tool, which Xavier is going to be sharing more about. For the out of school CSE program, and let me just say in general, that when we say we run sexuality education programs, we are either doing the program in the community space or in the school space. And each of these spaces have peculiarities that we need to pay attention to and ensure that our program is well designed and is meeting the needs of these two different categories of young people that we interface with. So for out of school, the tool is used to assess the program and the way it is run in spaces where you meet young people that are not in the school system. And basically, that is what we, NGOs and FDAs, we have primarily focused on. Whilst on the other side, in the in-school also, we use the tool to see the extent to which the sexuality education program is in conformity with the formal education program and how the two can run in a parallel way, whether integrated or standalone approach, whether we're running as a school club or a peer education activity or integrated in subject specifics that are taught by teachers. So whether you are doing the community-based or school-based program, the tool helps you to analyze and understand the effectiveness and applicability of the program that you're running. Now, comparing the SERAT and then the Inside and Out tool, they share a lot of the features in common, and I'm sure Xavier is going to share a bit about that also. But the point is that what we want to emphasize the fact that either the SERAT or the out of school, the SERAT or the Inside and Out, what we're trying to see and be sure about is that we have a program that has content based on standards that are applicable everywhere. And then it is based on evidence and practice, and we are intervening with information and education that is relevant to the young people that we are serving. Next slide, please.
Just to use as continue.
Yes. So, in terms of the process for assessment, there are 3 levels of the process. There is the things that you need to do before the assessment. There are things that you need to think about and be mindful of during the assessment. And there are things that you have to be critical about post the assessment. Before you conduct an inside and out assessment of your CSE program, I'll use the inside and out tool to assess your CSE program. Before you start, first thing you need to do is to identify the assessment lead for the MA or for your NGO or for your CSO. The reason is that there must be somebody who is a champion for your CSE program in your organization, and that person should have absolute and comprehensive knowledge of your program and then be able to rally the rest of the people around the assessment. When you have identified this person, the next thing you do is to set up the assessment team, which is comprised of key actors involved in the sexuality education program. I'm talking about young people. I'm talking about people who lead facilitation of CSE. I'm talking about somebody from a policy position in the organization, but also from outside the organization. There must be somebody or some people from the senior management team of your MA, and you need to have some external experts from universities, from the ministries, or some other agencies that have key stake in the CSE program that you're running. These people, you have to identify them and put them together as the assessment team, because they bring a diverse perspective of the program from their own expertise, but also from the community and from the organization that they represent. Then you need to agree on and assemble all the materials that you use in your sexuality education program for delivery. Every tool, every material that you use in the conduct of your sexuality education program, you need to assemble them, whether it is PowerPoint, whether it's a manual, whether they are videos, whether they are slides or they are flip charts, whatever it is that you use in delivery of your CSE program, you need to pull all of them together. Then the next thing you do is to agree on the period for the assessment. And this period must be suitable for every member of the team. Remember, I indicated it is a team approach. And so you need everybody who is going to be contributing to the team to be available for the period that you set yourselves to do the assessment. And then you need to also complete your country level indicator tool. If you look at the inside and out tool, towards the end bit, there's the data sheet. And that data sheet, it's important that you try to find your indicators, find the data to populate that component, because it will help. And this is why it's important to have an M&E person from your organization to be part of the assessment, because this person can help you to gather the data and complete that section before you start with the assessment. When you have done this, the next thing is to move to now do the assessment proper. When it is time to do the assessment and everybody is seated, the lead should do an orientation for every member of the team on the inside and out tool. People should get to see it, know it, have a feel of it, walk through the different tabs, the different components, the different elements, and get an understanding of what the inside and out tool is. They have to become familiar with it, play with it, become familiar to understand what the tool is all about. The next thing is to clarify what the purpose of the tool and the assessment is. And at this point, it is really important to emphasize the fact that the inside and out tool is not a fault-finding assessment tool. It is the idea for IPPF or the idea for the MA or the idea for the inside and out tool. It's not to say an MA CSE program is failing or it's not comprehensive or it's not good. The idea is to bring the program to up speed, to improve on the program. And so it's a process improvement to advance the CSE program. It is not a fault-finding mission. The next thing is to ensure that every member of the team have an open mind, they are critical, they are objective, and they find the evidence. The essence of the assessment is to find the evidence, say that our CSE program is lacking in objective A, or it is strong in objective B, or it actually requires improvement in section C. That is the essence of the assessment. So it's very important that you are objective and you find evidence in the assessment process. Then allow for full participation of every member of the team. You have brought this team together because of the comparative advantage each one of them brings to the assessment. Whether it's a university professor or the policy maker or the young person or the lead CSE person in the organization or the SMT, each one of them have an important contribution to make in the process. And therefore, you have to ensure that the entire team is carried along and everybody's contribution is brought to bear on the assessment. Then we emphasize that it's important for the MA or the lead person in the assessment not to be defensive. The idea is that we want to have a very open mind and objectively critique and analyze our tools, our materials, our approach. If we try to be defensive, there's no way we can improve the program. So what we say is that be critical, be objective, be open-minded, but make room for objective analysis of your program so that you can identify where the weaknesses are and what you can do to improve it. Then, in the process of the assessment, every indicator, every question, every tab and every question in the tab that you're responding to, be sure to provide explanations to those tabs and the indicators, because you will need those explanations when you are now running your analysis. So for example, in the content tab, if you have a question that asks whether your CSE program addresses issues of teenage pregnancy, and your answer is no, you must explain why you are saying no. If the reason for no is that in our country context, we are not allowed because of reason ABC to discuss teenage pregnancy with adolescents aged 12 to 14. It is not allowed in the country context. Put this explanation there under that particular indicator, because in your analysis tab, you would find, in your results tab, you will find that that question would be contributing greatly to your big red results. But the explanation you have that would help you to indicate that even though we are showing red in this content tab and our objective that is looking at teen pregnancy, the red is there, but the situation in country does not allow us to address this. But if you have not provided that explanation, you come to the point where you are analyzing and you're writing your report and indicating your action plan, you may miss out on this essential explanation, which will help your external evaluators or the external person reading a report to understand why you may not be intervening in teenage pregnancy for 12 to 14 years. So critical, put every explanation to every assessment factor so that you can use that to run your analysis.
Ishmael, you have
now, again, during the assessment, remember that your objective analysis of your tools and materials is what would eventually ensure that you have a strong CSE program. So as much as possible, do not let your values and your own judgments influence the responses you give for each of the assessment indicators, but rather let your materials be the basis for the responses you give to each indicator. Post the assessment, Number one, run the analysis together. Build consensus. It is not one person's idea or view or opinion. It has to be the collective reflection of every member of the team. Secondly, use the reporting tool that is inbuilt in the tool. The inside and out tool is developed in such a way that there is a web reporting format that is inbuilt in the tool. So, and that tool gives you clear guidance on how to do your reports and how to develop your action plan post the assessment. You don't have to struggle. You don't have to now think about how we're going to write the report. You don't have to now see how you would even run the analysis and reflect the findings of your analysis in your report. Everything is worked out. All you have to do is to pick what you found and place them in the report where it is. And based on that, you can proceed to do your action plan. Let your action plan reflect your findings. This is absolutely important. The essence of the inside and out tool is to ensure that we develop or improve our sexuality education program based on science, based on evidence, based on the facts, based on reality, based on data. So if we are able to go through the process of running the assessment, every single activity or action that you intend to do going forward, it cannot be what somebody is thinking or somebody. So our action plans must be based on the findings from the assessment. Then next, be sure that you reflect the national conditions in your action plan. The country context is critical. You are working. You are not going to be able to put your CSE program versus the country condition or situation. But it is important for you to reflect those conditions in your advocacy response. Because part of the CSE, part of what you are going to do in your action plan is to also identify what issues require advocacy that would help you to carry your CSE to the next level. So be mindful of the country context, be mindful of the sociocultural conditions that affect or impact on your CSE, and reflect these in your CSE program. So the next slide. The next thing is that I'm also going to share with you the components of the tool. It's a very comprehensive tool. When you open the tool, the first thing you find is the cover page, which gives you what it just presents to you what the name is, what the tool is. Then there is another tab. It's an Excel-based tool, so you will find the tabs at the bottom of the tool, and each tab tells you a specific thing. The first tab you will find, which is a component, is a cover page. The next thing you will find is the part that talks about what the inside and out tool is. Take your time, read that, and get to understand the tool. It's a very well-crafted document. That part helps you, and that is what you also need as the technical lead of CSE to do the orientation that I mentioned to the rest of the team. The next tab or component is how to use the inside and out tool. Every single step that you need to follow through to complete your inside and out assessment in your organization or MA has been well explained under this tab. You don't need to struggle. You just need to take your time to read it, understand it, and apply. The next tab is the general characteristics, which now exposes you to what you are going to be assessing, the different aspects of your CSE program that you're going to be assessing, and how you're going to be doing the ratings, or how you're going to be selecting responses and what you do with each response. Then you come to the content tab. The content tab now takes you into your CSE program. There are indicators and expectations of content that every CSE program should have based on its international standards, but also based on what we do as IPPF. So those indicators have been turned into questions that you have to select and respond to tell whether your CSE program has the content that meets these international standards. And based on your responses, you'll be generating the results at the end. The next is the interventions tab, which then now goes into the intervention, the approach by which you are delivering your CSE, whether it's an out-of-school intervention or in-school intervention, whether you are targeting young people, you are targeting adults, you are targeting teachers, and so on. That is where now you come to provide responses that describes the intervention that you're using to run your CSE. Then the next one is your M&E, where you look at the M&E framework and where you do the data, you provide all the data based on the indicators that you are responding to. Then you have the summary of results. After you have completed the general characteristics, the content, the intervention, and the M&E, the summary results now tells you a picture, gives you a picture of what your CSE program looks like. And from there, you can begin to see where there are issues, where there are gaps, where there are weaknesses, and whether you can respond to those. The next one is the data tab. The data tab is where you would have put all your country indicator data, and then that helps you to run the analysis. And remember, I mentioned that it's important that that part, if it is possible, you have somebody, your M&E person, complete the data tab, because you need that to help you in the responses that you run. Then there's the other side where we have the summary results in black and white. I mean, if you want to look at in general terms what the result essentially is, the reflection of your main result, which is colored, but this time you see it in black and white, just from the slide. Then there's the use of feedback tab, the tab that helps you to know what feedback you're generating and how to use the feedback of the assessment in the next stage of your CSE program development, whether you are going to be redeveloping, whether you're going to be your content, etc. The definitions tab, which helps you to now understand every technical terminology or everything you need to know about the CSE from a global perspective to help you to understand what you are, the things you are answering your assessment to. That is there, and it is helpful for whoever is leading the assessment to read this, understand them, and bring this knowledge into the assessment. Then there's the annexes where a few basic things have been explained. Now, let me give some tips. The tips you need to guide you in the assessment process and then the follow-up. So during the assessment, please, the technical lead and the team, it's important that you know your program. You must know your CSE program inside and out. The reason we call the two inside and out is that we expect whoever is running the program to know the program completely, have that understanding, knowledge about your CSE, the interventions, the focus, the targets, the strategies you're using, everything. Know the content completely. Understand the country context. Like I said earlier, you are implementing a very interesting CSE program that is targeted at young people or parents or mothers or teachers. You are not operating in a vacuum. You are implementing in a country. Know your country, know the country context, know the socio-political undertones, know the gender systems, know the culture, the behavior of the people, and that is what will help you to design and implement a program that will best address the situations and the circumstances you are operating in. Then you must be ready to be challenged. Be ready to be challenged. We are likely to be operating in a very comforting zone. Again, because we know the country context, it is easy for us to say, oh yeah, in our country, you can't talk about condoms. In our country, you can't talk about LGBT. In our country, you can't talk about CAC. You can't talk about abortion. But sometimes, sorry, I needed to take a sip of water. Sometimes our CSE program is not strong because those of us leading or pushing it, we ourselves hold certain prejudices and certain mindsets, and we are not ready or willing to push boundaries. But it's important that you don't allow yourself to be stuck because of the social, cultural, or political environment. Be ready to challenge the status quo and push the boundaries a little bit further. And that's the last point. Aspire to push the boundaries and don't be limited within the politics of the country. Try to challenge the institutions, challenge the policies, because have at the back of your mind that what you're trying to do is to fill a gap and empower young people to enjoy their sexuality and be safe. So pushing the boundaries a bit harder would help us get out of our comfort zone and do things slightly differently. Now, follow up. You can and you should build partnerships. Very, very important. There are state institutions, religious entities, community agents that you need to build partnerships with and follow up with these people because you need them to support you in the CSE program. When we had the CSE crisis in Ghana recently, one of the things that has helped us is because of our network within the community and the political systems that continue to say that we know these guys and they are doing a good job. You need that. Then ask yourself, who else can be a champion or be the champion of the CSE program? So you are not tying everything around one person. Have multiple champions, multiple people who can run with the program, even outside the MA or outside the organization, and they can continue to push the CSE agenda. Then, where can you find help? Who else has money to put into the CSE program? Who else has a voice whose voice can support the program? So find help, find people to support you. Then maintain the MA's or the organization's focus. If we are not careful, others can also come with the agenda to infiltrate into what we do and change the whole objective. So as much as we want to be challenged and to do a little more, let's keep our eyes on the road, let's keep our eyes on the target so we don't miss it and we don't end up pushing someone else's agenda, but we maintain our focus on what CSE is and what CSE should be for young people. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ishmael. That was totally worth waiting for. And now I'd like to give the floor to our colleague Xavier. So I will stop sharing my screen.
Hello?
Yes, hello colleagues. I am going to present my screen. Okay.
And I'll use the interim moment to remind our attendees to please mute their mics so that we can hear your presentation well enough.
Here we go. Well, this is a real pleasure to be here and very pleased to participate in this webinar with IPPF. The collaboration between IPPF and UNESCO around these two has been running for almost 10 years by now, and I am going to present another example of this collaboration, which is the updated version of the Sexuality Education Review and Assessment Tool. And it is quite, it is an even bigger pleasure because this particular version of the Sexuality Education Review and Assessment Tool has been developed with contributions from Katie Chow, Dr. Bracken, Arushi Singh, Kat Watson, which all worked with IPPF at some point. So it's like the collaboration is not is never ending, and it is a true pleasure. Moving forward, what is SERAT? Well, you have an idea from Inside and Out. SERAT is an Excel-based tool that helps to collect data on school-based sexuality education programs. It presents results in automatically generated bar charts. We'll see an example of that. It helps to assess the relevance of the sexuality education program in relation to the national context and sexual and reproductive health priorities. And this is a common point with Inside and Out. The purpose is to review school-based programs based on international evidence and good practice, and in this case, the latest edition of the International Technical Guidance on Sexuality Education. It is designed to assess programs' strengths and gaps and to inform improvement or reform. It makes it very easy to identify strengths and gaps and to see what can be taken from other programs in the region or in the same country. It is designed to assess program relevance in relation to health, to education, to gender, and to legal and policy context data. Also, it is very useful to stimulate debate and strengthen advocacy through producing data that is accessible to different audiences. Since SERAT has been finalized in 2012, it has been used in about 25 African countries. It has been adapted by the International Bureau of Education. It has been adapted to assess sexuality education in 18 Latin American and Caribbean countries. And it has been adapted, as you've seen, by IPPF to give you the Inside and Out tool. Here on your right, you have an example of a poster describing the result of a review of 23 countries in 23 countries in sub-Saharan Africa. There is a lot that we have learned along the way, and there has been new development since 2012. In particular, the International Technical Guidance on Sexuality Education has been thoroughly revised, and there was a need for a tool that was aligned to the new guidance, because with the new guidance, which presents a new understanding of the role, or more complete understanding of the role of sexuality education, a completely revised and broader content for the curricula, a revision of the evidence in support of sexuality education and effective programs, and also better knowledge about good practice in this area. There was also the need to integrate the improvements made in the different adaptations of the tool. And in that respect, the experience of developing the tool with IPPF, among other people, Selassie, which was just presented Inside and Out, was a very interesting experience, and it helped us to learn a lot about civil society programs, and some aspects of those programs could be integrated into a new tool. There was a need to add concepts and components, such as, which were not integrated in the first version, such as the response to gender-based violence in school, stronger linkages with services, linkages with parents and communities. And there was the need to take into account the new approaches to respond to HIV and other issues. For all those reasons, we developed the SERAT 3.XX, because it evolves, it is always improving and evolving. But this is the third generation of SERAT, after the major generation, which was SERAT 2.00. What is new in this new version? There is a whole new section on the legal context to assess laws on age of consent, abortion, access to services, etc. There are new indicators to assess sexual and reproductive health, gender-based violence, education, and demographic indicators in the country, which is assessed. There is new content organized by the key concepts, type of learning, and focus of learning given by the International Technical Guidance on Sexuality Education.
Javier,
There
5
is,
minutes.
thank you. There is a comprehensive assessment of teaching and learning approaches, which is more developed thanks to the contribution of the International Bureau of Education to its own version of the tool. There is a strengthened assessment of teacher training, including professional development and support. And most important of all, there is a shiny new format. But how does it work? Let's have a quick look at the tool itself. This is the cover. You can see below that you have different tabs. And when you click on the tabs, you can access to the items. And for each item, you answer yes, no, or somewhat. So you have items on content, teacher training, integration into curricula. Let's focus on teacher training. Here, you give different answers to the different questions. Yes, somewhat, no. And as you give the answers, you can see here on top that your answers are automatically recorded and transformed into colors, which give you an immediate sense of what is happening to your sexuality education program. The last column, the last bar, is transported into a summary, which we see very quickly. And as we collect the summary from all the tabs, we have an overview of the sexuality education program in the country. We can see in this program that the content for 8 years old, 5 to 8 years old is quite strong, but it is not as strong for adolescents from 15 to 18 years old, for instance. So this is very quickly how the tool works. Now what is going to happen? The new version of the tool is being translated into French and Russian. Other translations will follow as needs and opportunities arise. And the tool can be used to, this is, if you need to use the tool, the assessment process is very similar to the one that has been described by Selassie, which is you need to have experts in your team, different stakeholders. It has to have good participation and people with a good understanding of CSE. What you can do is work with a consultant to make interviews, gather all documentations, fill the tool out, write a report, and share the completed tool and report for validation. This is not very participative, but it can be useful if you want to compare different programs and different countries. Or there is the process described by Selassie, which is much more participative and which make the stakeholders fill the tool out themselves under the guidance of an expert, and it is much more rewarding process. The tool on your right side, you have different possibilities to use the tool. You can use it to make a situation analysis. You can use it to guide the program development, to measure progress, to compare programs, to encourage collaboration around the program, to review programs across countries and compare them among each other to detect the good practice and complementarities. And you can use also the tool to build capacities. So we hope that these different possibilities will encourage you to download the tool and use it and consider it as a complementary tool to Inside and Out to assess programs within schools. Thank you very much for your attention, and again, it was a pleasure.
Thank you very much, Javier. And
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you.
We have a chance to hear from Yanaranga, and I think he's also going to share his screen with us.
Yeah, thank you very much, Heidi. Let me share my screen. I think you can my screen right now.
We can see your screen and we can
And
hear you.
also, I think you can hear me clearly. Yeah. Hello, everyone. Good evening, dear colleagues. I think, first of all, I should say a few words about the background of CSE program in Sri Lanka. Sometimes you may not know that sexuality education of Sri Lanka is very low. Even it's not a part of its school curriculum. And not only among the youth, but also among the adults, has made a critical issue on their sexual and reproductive health. However, Sri Lankan government had initiated various programs and campaigns to enhance the knowledge throughout the last several decades. But as a leading non-government organization in SERAT sector, the Family Planning Association of Sri Lanka decided to create a comprehensive sexuality education program in 2015 under its advocacy program with the help of IPPF. At the first stage, CSE program conducted as one-day sessions or partly sessions. It might be a one-day or two-day programs, focusing youth groups all over the country. But in 2018, CSE programs was expanded as 3 days complete sessions with covering all the component of a CSE framework with the help of GGR Emergency Fund of IPPF. These programs were conducted mainly in the government schools and vocational training centers. However, in schools, the program components like sexuality, pleasure, and abortion, family planning are not covered since the cultural barriers and taboos. Basically, these programs were organized by the FESL service delivery point in some districts in Sri Lanka. There are service delivery point maintained by and managed by Family Planning Association head office. So as I mentioned, in Ampara SDP, Batikalo SDP, Koggala, Nuwara, Sitawak, and Watupitiwa, these are the 6 service delivery points under the Family Planning Association. In 2019, have conducted more than 100 CSE programs, and 7,519 young people were reached with the complete series of CSE curriculum. So let me move to our next slide. So you can see our objectives while assessing using this inside out tool. So in 2020, the GGR Emergency Fund will be ended, and the major objective of this assessment of CSE program was to assess the comprehensiveness and quality of the existing CSE program, and to enhance and strengthen the future programs of FESL related to comprehensive sexuality education. Actually, this insight and our tool allows us to self-reflection and identify the strengths and weaknesses of existing program, just like through the popular SWOT analysis. This tool analyzes the content of the program, as you can see with this graph, the program development and other key elements such as pedagogy, guidance, and materials, M&E of the program. So these all things lead to help to successfully implement the CSE program in Sri Lankan context. So now I'm on to the next slide. You can see the process overview of the assessment by using the inside and out tool. If you consider about the process followed with the inside and out tool to assess the CSE program, actually we have followed the stages or steps of the planning the activities and the implement the assessment, and finally preparation of the viable action plan to develop the existing program with FESL. So you can see the actions, objectives, and the key stakeholders engaged in this assessment in this table. So under the planning, consultation and agreement between the IPPF and FESL was taking place, and there were a series of online meetings between IPPF South Asian Regional Office, staff and FESL staff to organize this activity. And then there was an orientation training facilitated by IPPF South Asia Regional Office for the key staff members of FESL who engage in this assessment. As the next step of the assessment, we had to fill up the inside and out tool with the help of FESL staff through a consultation and with the help of key staff, including CSE project staff and outreach staff and also M&E staff. So as the next step, assessment, the desk review was happened with the participation of IPPF staff, especially from the SARO South Asian Regional Office, Mrs. Kunkumpal, the Senior Officer Project Advisor, and Mr. Suchira Suranga, Senior Technical Advisor, OLE. They have participated for this assessment. During this step, all the documents related to CSE program were reviewed by the IPPF staff. And after that, the observation of the CSE program, which held at the Sitavaka Vocational Training Center, Avisavela in Colombo district, was conducted by IPPF staff. So during this, they have assessed and reviewed the mode of the program, implementation and pedagogy and the content, etc. Focus group discussion with the participation of the CSE program was a key opportunity to us to closely review the program, and through the content, facilitators, interventions, quality of the materials were assessed. And also IPPF team could interview the facilitators of the CSE program and get their feedback about the program and to know about their qualification, skills, methods they have used, etc. For the final step of the assessment, the validation of the findings and debriefing was taken place with the participation of IPPF team members and FESL staff. Finally, the report of the assessment was prepared by the IPPF SARO and shared with the FESL with the action plan prepared during the last DBP meeting. So that was the process we have followed with the several steps. I think you can clear about the process. Now I'll move to the next slide.
We have 3 minutes left.
Thank you, Heidi. Finding and key learning questions. So as I mentioned earlier, this was a great opportunity for FESL to assess our CSE program. Therefore, finding of this assessment play a major role for that purpose. So I would like to share the findings and key learnings through this inside and out tool assessment process. So firstly, review and revisit the existing training manual and materials of the program. The assessment report reflects that the existing CSE curriculum of the program need to be developed with areas of such as sexual rights, relationships, violence, SRH and HIV, etc. And also materials distributed and presentations to be aligned with the IPPF CSE framework. Since the facilitators use their own materials and presentations, so it was recommended to develop these materials and presentations with aligned with the CSE framework. And next point is to develop revised training materials aligned with IPPF CSE framework. As I mentioned earlier, CSE curriculum training materials like leaflet, questionnaires, presentation to be developed to align with IPPF framework. And during the assessment, as the next point, it was found that the existing training methods are only presentations and few of the activities to change the training methods to effective and skill-based learning. It was recommended under the assessment report to use participatory and effective training methods and encourage youth on critical thinking and self-reflectory learning methods and also creative and collective activities. These things were found during this assessment. And next point, to shift the training approach from medical to social development. That would be very important. According to the assessment findings, we came to know that the approach of those facilitators is only focused in the medical perspectives. But this type of CSE programs especially should focus on social development, as we know, than enhance the knowledge on medical terms. So therefore, it was recommended to change the existing approach by considering the existing findings and existing mode of training delivery. Next one is considering the finding of assessment. FESL agreed and planned to conduct refresher trainings, the cascade of the refresher training series for facilitators to build their capacity. As we found earlier, their capacity and their skills and their methods to be developed. So especially focusing the factors raised through this assessment process, it was found that. So finally, the other things is the indicator to measure the program. You know, how important the indicators to measure the programs and its outcome, impact level. So however, we had web-based centralized monitoring and evaluation information management system called MEIMS with FESL, and it can collect all the program data event-wise and also client-wise disaggregation. It includes the mechanism to analyze the programmatic data and the pre-force test data in order to measure the knowledge gaining level. However, the assessment suggested to develop the quality indicators rather than the existing indicators to measure the outcome and impact of the program. So finally, I move to the action plan we have prepared during the last debriefing meeting to strengthen and develop the existing CSE program with the help of IPPF South Asia Regional Office. So you can see what are the components of this action plan. Unfortunately, we had to face for the COVID-19 epidemic. Therefore, we had to postpone some actions ahead, and we need some more time to complete this action plan. So you can see the review the CSE training manual, resource materials, cascade training for external facilitators, and refresher TOD trainings, and re-administrated the inside out tool to assess the improvement level. That would be very important, because so when we're strengthening and developing the existing program, so in some sort of level, we have to assess our improvement. So the inside out and out tool that can be used to to assess the improvement level as well. And the review of pre-post test questioning of the training that would be done, and development of focus group discussion tool and institutionalized in FESL as a part of M&A system is a qualitative method of gaining some data into the MEIMS system. And finally, a quantitative research CSE intervention with attitude and behavior, including some qualitative indicators. I think this action plan would be complete within the next year or next the head periods, with collaboration of the FESL staff and IPPA staff. I think now you have a good or some kind of the gross idea about the experience of FESL about inside and out tool by assessing our existing CSE program. So thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to express our ideas and our to sharing our experience on behalf of the FESL. Thank you very much, Heidi, and thank you very much for your kind and great attention.
Thank you for helping us to ground the previous presentations into a specific example. I would like to invite now Herb to share the experience from Togo with us, and I think he's also going to share his screen with us. As I mentioned at the beginning of our meeting, he will be presenting in French. So those of us that are following this meeting in English should be able to hear the live translation if we have chosen the English channel. Over to you, Herb.
Ok. Merci. Est-ce que vous me recevez? C'est bon? C'est bon? Ok. J'ai l'honneur de vous présenter l'expérience du Togo avec l'évaluation des programmes de l'ESC à base de l'outil l'arbre et la forêt. Le contexte. En 2012, le ministère togolais de l'Éducation a intégré pour la première fois l'ESC dans les programmes d'enseignement préscolaire primaire et du premier cycle. En 2009, la TBF a mis en œuvre l'éducation sexuelle complexe dans près de 906. En 2019, plutôt, la TBF a mis en œuvre l'éducation sexuelle complète dans près de 906 écoles publiques et confessionnelles, ce qui nous a permis de toucher près de 27 132 000 jeunes grâce à notre programme complet d'éducation sexuelle complète. Nos programmes d'éducation sexuelle complète se composent de 12 séances d'au moins 8 heures. Donc, pour compléter l'éducation sexuelle complète, il faut avoir fait, il faut être exposé aux 12 séances d'au moins 12 heures. La TBF a évalué donc son programme d'éducation sexuelle complète à 2 reprises. La première fois en 2015 et la deuxième fois en 2018. Depuis 2014, en qualité de centre d'apprentissage ou learning center en éducation sexuelle complète, la TBF offre un soutien technique aux associations membres francophones de l'IPPF. L'objectif de l'évaluation de 2018 est d'examiner et d'évaluer l'exhaustivité de la qualité des programmes d'éducation sexuelle complète et en particulier des programmes gérés par la société civile en s'appuyant sur les observations internationales et les normes de bonne pratique. De produire les données capables d'informer et de guider le développement, l'amélioration ou la réforme des programmes de SC, d'informer le débat et le plaidoyer en produisant des données sur l'état de l'ESC qui soient compréhensibles. Donc, l'évaluation a porté sur les normes de bonne pratique et les outils utilisés. L'outil utilisé est l'arbre et la forêt, qui se base sur les principes directeurs de l'UNESCO et du programme Only One, un seul programme, sans oublier le cadre de l'ESC de l'IPPF. Les intervenants, ceux qui ont pris part à l'évaluation, nous notons la présence du directeur des programmes, de la direction des programmes, du département de suivi-évaluation, du ministère en charge de la jeunesse, du ministère de l'Éducation, des jeunes bénéficiaires de l'ESC, à savoir les jeunes scolaires et les jeunes extrascolaires de l'équipe du programme jeune et des acteurs, des différents acteurs. Donc, comme je le disais tantôt, l'évaluation, les objectifs consistent à évaluer les normes de bonne qualité, à évaluer notre programme sur son exhaustivité, sa qualité et sa pertinence, et enfin à compiler les données pour l'évaluation afin de l'amélioration future des programmes d'éducation sexuelle complète. Diapo. Il a été présenté les différents onglets de l'outil Inside and Out, l'arbre et la forêt. Le premier onglet sur les principales conclusions de l'évaluation. Au niveau des objectifs, nous voyons le jaune. Le jaune veut dire qu'il y a un petit effort à faire pour atteindre le vert. Quand c'est le vert, ça veut dire que cet item est à 100% rempli. Donc, nous notons qu'au niveau des objectifs affectifs, le changement d'attitude reste à améliorer. L'élaboration du programme est à 94% parce que tous les acteurs de la conception des programmes sont associés depuis la conception jusqu'à l'exécution des programmes d'éducation sexuelle complexe. Le gap, on note qu'il faut améliorer l'implication des leaders religieux parce que on avait constaté que l'Église catholique n'avait pas participé activement à ce processus. On note également au niveau des liens, les liens avec les services, qu'il y a le jaune qui prédomine. Donc, le gap, c'est d'offrir les services ou les contraceptifs à toutes les sessions d'éducation sexuelle complète. D'offrir également d'offrir les services sur place, les services de counseling, les services de dépistage de VIH, les services de contraception à toutes les séances d'éducation sexuelle complète. Au niveau de l'onglet domaine et contenu, nos points forts, les séances sur les droits sexuels, la citoyenneté et la violence ont été mieux traitées. Nous sommes à 85%, suivi de la séance sur les relations. Les domaines à renforcer, mes prédécesseurs l'avaient dit, compte tenu de l'outil Inside and Out s'applique au programme dans un pays. Donc, il y a les politiques du pays qu'il faut respecter. Et notre manuel, nos différents manuels sont élaborés avec l'implication, comme je le disais tantôt, du ministère de l'Éducation, du ministère de la Jeunesse, des leaders religieux et des jeunes. Donc, le plaisir a été un peu censuré par certains acteurs. Donc, cette composante reste à améliorer. La SSR aussi. La SSR, c'est surtout au niveau de l'avortement par rapport à la politique du pays où on ne pouvait pas donner vraiment s'appesantir sur cette sous-composante. La diversité aussi a besoin d'être renforcée compte tenu de la politique du pays. Nous avons conclu qu'une meilleure relation entre la sexualité et la religion serait un atout considérable pour le succès des activités. Diapo. Domaine de contenu amélioré, tous les équipements pilotes ont été testés avant d'être utilisés dans les interventions. Nous sommes au niveau des interventions, de l'onglet intervention. Comme succès, nous voyons que le contenu et l'intervention sont presque au vert. Donc, c'est parce que les équipements, je venais de le dire, tous les acteurs ont pris part et le programme a été prétesté avec tous ces acteurs et les cibles avant d'être retenus. Les instructions comprennent une liste de documents nécessaires à la mise en œuvre. Comme question, point à améliorer, les méthodes, il faut diversifier les méthodes d'apprentissage. Donc, au niveau de ce point ce point reste à améliorer, la diversification des méthodes adaptées, d'écriture, d'apprentissage visuel et actif, de rythmes d'apprentissage différents d'exercices indépendants de groupe. Mais il faut souligner que dans notre pays, peu lisent la langue, nos langues nationales. C'est ce qui peut justifier le jaune à ce niveau. Le matériel est représentatif de la diversité des jeunes qui vivent dans le pays. Donc, ce point aussi restait à améliorer, de diversifier le matériel en fonction de la diversité des jeunes dans le pays. De former la formation de tous les enseignants en éducation sexuelle complète. Au niveau de cet item aussi, un travail reste à faire, la formation formelle de tout enseignant avant son déploiement dans une école afin que les élèves soient pleinement exposés à l'éducation sexuelle complète. Diapo. Pour le suivi, évaluation, la planification, nous n'avons pas de soucis. Tout ce que vous voyez en vert, comme je le disais, c'est les succès, c'est les points forts. C'est les points forts en note. Nous faisons les pré- et les post-tests avant toute session d'éducation sexuelle complète. Les jeunes font partie de notre suivi évaluation. Les informations sont communiquées aux intervenants, y compris les jeunes. Comment GAP a amélioré, élaborer, surveiller les indicateurs de l'incidence de la violence conjugale, y compris les relations sexuelles forcées. Diapo. Résumé des interventions, c'est l'onglet qui vient résumer tout ce travail, l'évaluation qui vient nous donner le résumé de l'évaluation. Nous constatons, nous disons donc que la TBF a de bonnes performances dans les caractéristiques générales de l'ESC, à savoir amélioration de l'objectif et du lien avec les services du programme et dans le suivi évaluation. Cependant, des améliorations doivent être apportées aux interventions, contenu des interventions, méthodes et formations des nouveaux éducateurs, des pères éducateurs, implication des leaders religieux dans le programme d'éducation sexuelle complète et au contenu technique des programmes de jeunesse, c'est-à-dire diversifier et mettre maintenant, renforcer les composantes diversité, plaisir et avortement, et également dans la mise en œuvre des sessions. Diapo. Le plan de mise en œuvre post-évaluation, nous avons évalué notre programme de SC afin d'identifier les gaps et d'y remédier. Et à travers la présentation, vous aurez dû constater que nous avons peu de points qui sont en jaune. Nous n'avons pratiquement pas de signal rouge. Le rouge voudrait dire qu'il y a un déficit cruel à améliorer. Donc, nous avons conçu la conception du guide de formation en ESC. On avait des manuels de formation en ESC, mais pour la méthodologie dont on avait soulevé comme gap, on a conçu un guide de formation en ESC afin de s'assurer que la méthodologie est active et ce qui se dit à Accra, c'est le même message qui se dit à Lomé et un peu partout au Togo ou ailleurs. Donc, c'est la TBF qui a eu le lead de cette activité avec l'implication du ministère en charge de l'éducation, du ministère en charge de la jeunesse, du MAGE et des ONG. La prestation de services, le lien offre de services éducation sexuelle complète sur nos projets du PP restreint et non restreint. On avait relevé, comme vous l'avez vu, il fallait améliorer, il fallait systématiser l'offre de services et l'éducation sexuelle complète parce que le jeune qui reçoit l'éducation sexuelle complète doit être en mesure de bénéficier en même temps des services cliniques. Donc, au jour d'aujourd'hui, nous avons contractualisé, étant donné que l'ATBF aussi ne peut pas couvrir toute l'étendue du territoire, nous avons contractualisé avec les cliniques franchisées et nos pères éducateurs aujourd'hui offrent des services de contraception. Nous avons mis en place des kiosques d'offres de services aux jeunes, y compris l'injectable dans les universités de Kara et de Lomé, et nous avons les agents de santé communautaire qui offrent également ces services en continu. Nous avons élaboration du guide des leaders religieux, partenaires des leaders religieux. Nous avons signé un contrat avec Compassion, où nous avons élaboré les guides de formation des leaders religieux, des jeunes et des parents membres de la Confédération de Compassion internationale Togo. Il faut dire que Compassion internationale Togo regroupe un certain nombre d'églises. Partenariat avec les ONG de compassion pour atteindre les leaders, les jeunes et les femmes des églises partenaires en santé sexuelle et de la reproduction. Offre de services conviviaux en distribution à base communautaire, comme je le disais, en clinique mobile et à travers les kiosques. Pour toucher la diversité des jeunes, nous avons aussi aujourd'hui les cours en ligne, l'offre des cours en ligne à travers notre plateforme e-learning où les jeunes peuvent bénéficier des cours en ligne. Nous avons aussi mis en place l'application Info Ado Jeunes où les jeunes peuvent bénéficier à travers leur téléphone mobile de la téléconsultation, de l'orientation en ESC et d'une assistance conseil à travers nos conseillers, nos téléconseillers. Je vous remercie.
Thank you so much, Hev, for sharing that experience so openly with us. And thank you to all the speakers for the information that you have been sharing with us. I am aware that we have overrun because we started this meeting a little later than we had planned. And yet I would like to still use some time for clarifications or questions and answers, feedback that you have. And I have seen that some of you started sending some questions in the chat. One of those people was Dr. Gopi, and I am not sure if you would like to use your mic to share your question with us, or whether you would prefer me to read it. Either is fine. I think one of the queries Dr. Gopi had was for Xavier about the use of SERAT in different. There you are, Dr. Gopi. Please, I'll let you speak.
Yeah. Heidi, I was just requesting access or information about this document where we can get a complete information about the African experience. And also another question was basically to know from other colleagues, there was any example where utilization of these tools have led to or contributed to a major advocacy win with respect to pushing major policy changes with respect to CSE. Thank you very much. Heidi, is that clear? The question? Yeah, the first question was a simple request to...
Yes. Would you like us to answer to questions individually, or should we wait for different questions before answering?
Yeah, I think we will take them individually, Xavier.
Okay. So I can share the review of 23 countries in Sub-Saharan Africa was presented on a poster presented at the AIDS conference 2019. So I can share it with the organizers of this call, and it can be made available to all participants. as regards an example of country where the study led to changes, I think we can say this about Cameroon, which was one of the countries where the study was carried out in 2013, if I'm not wrong. And this is one contribution among other ones, but now it has a fairly good new program, much improved. I think in Ghana there are many, of course, there are many organizations working on those issues, so it's difficult to take credit for all the progress, but I think that in Ghana, SERAT analysis also contributed to improvement of programs. In other countries, we had comparisons of different programs in the same country, and it was a very interesting way to show that there were, if we put the different programs together, we will have a very strong one. And it is not necessary to take good practice from abroad, but you can seek good practice within the country. You just have to consolidate the different contributions. This is something that happened in Senegal, although the opportunity to officially include the new program into the curricula has not materialized yet, but we are still able to use the consolidated program through projects. Over.
Thank you, Xavier. And I know in this call we have some colleagues that are from other regions who haven't quite presented, or even other member associations who might want to share some reflections on how they got new ideas for their advocacy following the use of either SERAT or Inside and Out. So you are very welcome to come and share your experience if you would like to share anything around that. Ishmael, I don't know if you have anything that you'd like to add, since Xavier has already mentioned Ghana. Or is anybody else, does anybody else have a question? You could use the hand raising function under the participants list.
Come on. Come on. Dankwa.
Archibald, are you trying to share an example with us?
Like his predecessor, Mr. Trump does not allow his staff photographer to capture photographs of life and work inside the White House. If you just stacked up the images of the Obama presidency and the Trump presidency, you would see the two stories of America in this story.
Okay, I think there is a comment coming in from Alison, and it's for our colleagues in Sri Lanka. The last action point was regarding quantitative indicators for CSE impact. FPAI in India is currently developing a tool to measure this in partnership with the innovation program. Alison, would you like to speak a little bit about that, or maybe we can connect you later on with colleagues in Saro and maybe Sri Lanka to maybe see if we can share some of the experience there.
This 5-year-old kid asked Obama.
Okay, good point. Thank you, Alison, for highlighting that. And I'll make a note of that so that we keep it also for the follow-up here. Anybody else who has any comments or questions before we wrap up the session?
And empathy. Don't you wish we had that now?
When I first met Pete, his politics were not at all evident. Pete changed. He could no longer be this blind.
I don't see any hands being raised or any comments coming into the chat. So that will indicate to me that we are coming to the end of our session. I am sharing on my screen now the contact details for the presenters that you have heard today. And we have been recording this session, so it will be available for future reference if you would like to share this with your colleagues. And finally, remember that you can access the Inside and Out and the SERAT tool online. I will post the links here before we wrap up, as well as the links to the slides. Thank you once again to the speakers we had today for sharing their experience with us and their tips for those of you who are interested in doing a similar process of using these tools in your own programs. The next GUSO webinar is planned for the second half of September, and it will be focused on the findings from our research into peer education. So watch out for invites on the IPPF Twitter account or Slacks. And thank you for joining us. Hopefully we'll see you again at the next webinar. Goodbye, everybody.
Goodbye, Hedi, and thank you so much to everybody for this very good session. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Heidi, and all the participants. I think it was a great opportunity, and
Thank you, Joel. Thank you, Jojo, for interpreting for this meeting. Thanks, Rafael.